guys, welcome to this episode of the Garage Gym Podcast. Today, I'm here with Artem Biziaev, and Artem runs a company called Northlift Belts, and he is the premier manufacturer of handmade leather goods for all lifting and strength sports. So Artem, give us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, thank you so much for having me on. A little bit about myself. Do you want me to start from like the beginning?
Sure. When were you born?
I was born in '93 in Russia, and I came over here on the floating door in 1997 with my family. Door. Yep. The fastest way of transportation across that ocean. I spent a lot of my youth in gymnastics. Took it competitively for a little while. Then after high school, I transitioned into personal training in 2011, and I decided to pursue that industry a little deeper. So I pursued a kinesiology degree through the U of A and McEwen. I started at McEwen, but yeah, joint program. Were you in that program too?
No, I started at U of A. I never really understood how that joint program works.
You just do half of it at McEwen, basically.
Like, so, do you start at McEwen and do a full like year or two at McEwen, or do you do like half and half from the get-go?
I think it was, you could like take a maximum of half your course credits at McEwen, and then you transition to the U. That degree took me a long time to get. So I just graduated last March in 2020. I think the degree took me 6 or 7 years.
Why did it take you so long?
Man, I was in the beginning, I was like, yeah, I'll just go to school, do whatever, take 3 classes a semester. Just really took my time because school was super fun. Like, especially the McEwen gym. I had so much fun there, meeting new people and like meeting my McEwen crew. And that's where Northlift Belts started as well. And I think I just had so much fun. I didn't want it to end. So I just kind of kept stretching it on. Also, when I started Northlift Belts, it started taking up a good amount of my time. And I used it as a way to make an income. So taking 4 courses or more was pretty challenging to balance work and school at the same time. So graduated in 2020 from the U with kinesiology degree in sports performance. And here I am working in a shop, making weightlifting belts.
Yeah, university is definitely a lot of fun, and I find that there's a lot of people that are like, hey, I'm going to take my 5 courses, I'm going to get it done as soon as possible, and then they just drive themselves into the ground and forget to have fun while actually learning about things they're interested in. So if you can take 3 courses and stretch it out, but still make an income and have fun, I definitely think that's the better way to do it.
I don't regret anything at all, but I mean, like, I was pretty stupid when I was 21 years old anyway. So
as we all are, yeah.
Yeah. So I feel a lot more balanced, I think, now that I'm 28 years old, and it's like I've now been coaching people for nearing 10 years. So I feel like I kind of have an even grounding, I guess, in the industry and like the research space and stuff like that. Man, if I just went straight into a kin degree and ripped through it, because I graduated high school when I was 17, like freshly 17. So if I went straight from 17 years old, ripped through a kin degree and popped out of school at 20 years old or like 21 years old, what's 7 plus 4? So you can't even do that. At 21 years old, like, I don't know, man. Like I was pretty ridiculous when I was 21. I think we were talking before the show how loud and colorful I was at the McEwen gym. That was me at 21, 22 years old. So I think I've kind of like calmed down since then. I'm a little bit more easy to digest now than I was back then.
I don't know, man. Being hard to digest is like, it's fun. It's better than being a boring nobody that's just the same as everyone else.
I can't do it. I can't do that.
Can't be one of the masses.
I guess, although it's nice to be one of the masses. It sometimes depends on the topic and what we're measuring. Like driving on the right side of the road. It's nice to be part of that mass.
Yeah,
you don't need to be
the grain there.
Yeah, you don't got to be cool. Start driving on the left. Look at all these sheep driving on the right. I'm woke.
Look at all these sheep driving in the actual road and not on the shoulder. My goodness.
Unbelievable.
So you said that Northlift Belts started kind of at the McEwen gym. Give us a little more about that. How did that begin?
Yeah, so this was probably 2013 or 2014. I had made my first belt. I think I had made my first belt in 2013. My history is kind of, who knows. But anyway, it was around there, and I started meeting a lot of people at the McEwen gym, meeting a lot of power lifters and ollie lifters there's like the gym there is split in half basically. So like the other half section is filled with the powerlifting racks and the platforms and stuff like that. So we had a group of people that hung out in there. I started meeting a lot of people, started making friends, and I remember I bought a belt from a big company, and
who shall remain nameless.
Exactly, nameless. And then I remember like the day that it got to me, I took it out of the box, I put it on, and I'm like, I hate this. I hate this so much. So I literally, I sold that belt to a friend, and I'm like, I can do this. So my dad was a leather worker himself back in Russia. He had his own shop, and so he had a sewing machine, like a industrial sewing machine. So I produced my first belt at that point. The sewing machine was absolutely not powerful enough. So like, like on a regular electric sewing machine, you have like a foot pedal, right? So you press the foot pedal and then it sews it sews by itself. This machine wasn't strong enough, so I had to hand crank every single stitch because the machine wouldn't feed through it. So I think I still have my first belt somewhere there. But anyway, I just started playing around with designs. I went to my local suppliers, bought some leather. I guess I've always been kind of like a creative guy, so I thought right away, like, what is the most annoying thing about powerlifting belts? And right away it was, they're too thick, they're too dense, they're too stiff, they hurt when you wear them. Like, you're already uncomfortable under a heavy ass bar. Why should you be more uncomfortable? Is kind of like my thought process there. So I designed my first model, which is called the Atlas, which has a tension belt of 65 millimeters around, and then it has an interior belt of 100 millimeters. So you still get a full like 100 millimeters of bracing surface, but that smaller tension belt on the outside that actually creates the tension, it creates kind of like a smaller wrapping surface, and then it allows the interior belt to flex a little bit more, and it accommodates your hips and your ribs a lot better than like a conventional really stiff powerlifting belt. So I started working on that design. I made a couple prototypes, and then I approached two of my very good friends that are still my friends now. And I told them, like, this is what I want to do. Let's see where this goes. And they gave me a small investment, which I paid back, and then with belts as well. And I basically used my student loan. I sold my synthesizer. I sold my motorcycle. I used like everything I had in my bank, and I bought my giant sewing machine that I've been using ever since. So I think that was 2015 or 2014 that I got that sewing machine, and yeah, I've been using it ever since. And now the sewing machine is worth $2,000 more than what I paid for it. So I don't know how that happened, but
Yeah. And I mean, I doubt you're ever going to get rid of that, but that's nice to know you bought it when it was cheap.
yeah, I will not be, no, I won't be getting rid of that. There was a part of me that was like, oh man, like, wouldn't it be cool to have like a vintage saddle machine that's like, 50 or 100 years old and stuff. But then I don't know. There's certain things that are cool because they're old, but then at the same time, it's just kind of like, you know what, things have gotten a lot better.
Yeah, technology's improved a little bit.
Yeah, it's quite nice. New comforts is quite nice. So it looked cool, but then I was thinking like, man, if I actually replace that thing and I start playing around on a 100-year-old machine, I'm probably gonna be mad. So I'm trying to be as efficient as possible these days.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely attest to those super thick traditional powerlifting belts being uncomfortable because like the first time you wear them and actually squat heavy, you bruise your hips, you bruise your ribs, and they're basically all made for super heavy weights. And if you're like a 74-kilo guy, that's not going to work too great for you. Or if you're like a 55-kilo girl wearing a belt that was designed for a super heavyweight man, it's not really going to fly.
Absolutely. The 4-inch standard, right? The 4-inch or the 10-centimeter standard in powerlifting it's completely arbitrary, right? It's going to be 4 inches is going to be less than somebody that's 6'5", 300 pounds. I mean, like they could probably wear a belt up to 5 or 6 inches and it'd be very effective. And 4 inches and 10 or 13 millimeters thick is just going to be complete overkill for, 55-kilo girl that's like 4 foot nothing, right? So 4 inches is just, it's an arbitrary, it's just an arbitrary standard that we made. But so that was kind of the big thing, is that I started making belts that weren't double ply, that weren't 10 or 13 millimeters thick. It's like, I was looking at these belts and I'm like, why? Like, I don't need this much. There's very few people that need this much leather. So yeah, I think I'm approaching order number 700, but I've produced more than that in terms of belts. I've probably made, I don't know, maybe, between like 700 and 800 belts probably that are out there right now. And like, I think in terms of like double ply, I've made maybe 5. Yeah. Nobody asks for it because it is unnecessary for the vast majority of people to go double ply. So like most of my belts are between 7 and 8 millimeters thick, and that is like more than enough. Even some of those belts can be kind of stiff to begin with, and then obviously they'll break in and become a lot softer. So right after I made the Atlas, which was the 100 millimeter model, I made an 80 millimeter model, or like what a 3-inch belt is. In the industry, people sometimes call them bench belts because you can arch really hard in a 3-inch belt, and the belt also kind of keeps your bench shirt down if you're geared, if you're a geared power lifter. So yeah, I made this 80 millimeter model, which is the Titan, which turned out to be pretty popular with like CrossFitters, and kind of 80 millimeters seems to be a lot more relevant to like most lifters that kind of do a bit of everything, right? They might do CrossFit, they might do a mix of Olympic lifting and deadlifting and stuff like that, and squatting. So the 80 millimeter came out to be a pretty popular model. And then I think, and then I went on to make the Olympic model, which is the 65 millimeter around the front and sides, and then the 10 centimeter back brace along the back, which is kind of like the prototypical or the classic weightlifting or bodybuilding style belt. And I think I've improved on my models quite a bit over time. And yeah, so that's 3 models. And then I made a powerlifting model, which is just the classic double prong or a single prong at 4 inches width. And then I also made a lever model, which is pretty much as simple as it can get. But there's still a few things that I've tried to make the model my own, right, in some sense. And man, tracking down levers was very difficult because when I first made them, stainless steel levers are now becoming more popular. But like when I first started making them, like I remember the one stainless steel lever I bought cost me like $110 for one lever when they first came out. Because I was so afraid of my lever snapping, because that's like actually a very common problem with lever belts. They just snap. So yeah, I've switched completely to stainless steel levers. They're pretty much, I think they're unbreakable to any human being anyway.
Yeah, most stainless steel is pretty tough.
Yes. Speaking of stainless steel, I'm still I'm actually getting some handmade buckles out of stainless steel right now as well, which is just, again, kind of overkill, but I think I like to overkill some things in some aspects. So why not?
Yeah, that's one thing I was kind of going to say about the stuff that you make. A little bit is overkill because it's definitely the nicest stuff that I've ever seen. But again, I'm not an expert. You're the expert. But I think that's what makes you and your company what it is because everything's handmade by you and everything is like artisan quality.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I really take pride in my work, and I think I take it very personally. That's probably a good and a bad thing to take your work a little bit too personally, but it is what it is. And I definitely try my best, and I'm very, I'm probably quite self-conscious about my work. So like, I really just try to do my best.
Yeah. Because you're not a big brand company that's just like, okay, I'm trying to produce a profit. Like your work kind of reflects your personality to a certain degree, right?
Yeah, I mean, and my business is just me, right? So I think most locals anyway, like in Edmonton, know that like Northlift Belts is just Artie. It's just one guy, right? He makes everything start to finish. So it's if you run a company of 20 to 50 people, and even your production side alone, maybe your belt has been touched by 10 to 20 different people. Through a whole bunch of different processes, through a billion different machines and presses and stuff like that. Maybe it's a little bit easier to kind of, I guess, pass the buck if something goes wrong with a product or something like that. But yeah, every single step is by me. So I guess I have to take it personally because I'm responsible for every aspect of every product.
Yeah. And then ends up with a better product. Right? Like you've made belts for quite a few like high profile lifters or Instagrammers, haven't you?
Instagrammers, yes. My first
influencers on fitness.
My first belt, the first belt that I made for like kind of a bigger name was Omar Yusuf. Big YouTube guy. I guess if you don't know who Omar is and you're in the Canadian fitness market, I mean, come on, man.
Is Omar Canadian?
But, oh yeah, he lives in Ontario.
Okay.
There you go. So yeah, I made this pretty sweet Atlas belt for him, and he made a nice video for me, hyped me up. It was pretty sweet. It was it felt pretty legitimate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I made belts and straps for Bodhi and the Centabis, also for his brother Noah. Man, Bodhi is super duper strong, and he out of everybody I've made straps for, he is one of 2 people that have ripped my straps.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's snatching or cleaning as much as Bodhi that's using your straps. I mean, he's definitely strongest weightlifter in Canadian history, and he's like actually in contention for world and Olympic medals.
That's crazy. I mean, actually, I was going to ask you, because you know about Ollie lifting. Apart from Christine Girard, is there anyone in the modern era that has medaled at the Olympics as a Canadian?
Not yet, but Bodhi Santavi and Maud Charon are both heavy contenders for a medal in Tokyo. Because I think now that North Korea said they're pulling out of Tokyo, Maud's probably going to be on the podium for at least one lift. And
That's
then
sick.
a couple weeks ago at Pan Am's, Bodhi took an attempt at the snatch world record. So, I mean, he's pretty close.
Goddamn. Yeah, that's it's pretty exciting to see a Canadian like have that a level of competition. It was on one of your previous podcasts I listened to of yours. You guys were talking about, I forgot who the guest was, but you guys talked about the difference between, you know, the athletic systems between, you know, Canada and China, Russia, yeah. Eastern Bloc countries. And you guys were talking about how, like, you know, a lot of Canadian lifters don't start at the ripe age of 6 years old, right? A lot of them start at late teens or early teens, maybe, if they're lucky. So, I mean, Bodhi isn't one of those people. I mean, he comes from a lineage of competitive lifters, and he obviously started very young. But even still, it's watching Canadian weightlifters on the international stage, whether it's Tokyo or any other international competition. It's a lot like watching a David and Goliath situation in a lot of ways, I think, because the support to this sport in Canada is, you know, it's quite slim. So
it's almost non-existent. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So it's very difficult. I feel like they have to go through a lot more hurdles, especially funding issues, right? Just like everything can be fixed if you put enough money into it, basically.
Yeah, you just throw dollars at it. Someone will win eventually.
Absolutely.
But yeah, like look at Bodhi. He doesn't come from any sort of weightlifting system. He wasn't introduced to the sport in school. His dad taught him how to weightlift in their garage when he was like a child. And then he just stuck with it until he's now like 25 or something. So he's been doing it for 20 years, because weightlifting is like a marathon sport where the longer time you spend in it, the better you're going to be. So if you start when you're 20 and then you go for 10 years and now you're 30, either you're not going to have gotten good enough and you're going to start declining, or you're just going to be broken.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, even think about it, like isn't like Liu Xiaozhen considered like an old guy now? Like,
yeah, he's like an old man in weightlifting now.
And what is he, like early 30s or something?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah, the sport can beat you up pretty rough, especially if you commit your life to it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's similar to a lot of different sports. If you do it full time for 10 or 20 years, there may be a price to pay.
Yeah, and I mean, it's similar to any sport, but the longer you can stay in it without being injured is probably going to be the key to having that long-term success.
Absolutely. And it's very similar in powerlifting too. I mean, when I first started in powerlifting, I think my first competition was maybe 2013 or something. Anyway, like I took like a bench record, an Alberta bench record at my first meet in 2013. It wasn't like a big bench. It was just like nobody was involved in the sport. Like there weren't any records basically. Over time, I like throughout my competitive career, like I just kept getting bumped lower and lower because just all these crazy strong ass juniors would pop out of the woodwork, right? They're like 18, 19 years old. And it's like, when I first started, like a 400 Wilks was impressive. And now it's like 400. What are you? Like, nobody cares, right? It's like, now you have like 66 kilo kids pulling like 300 kilos. It is insane. But my point is that a lot of the guys that kind of beat me out, they just kind of disappeared. Like they burned really, really bright, and then they would get hurt, and then they would just disappear. And it's like they'd go do whatever else. So in that point, like in that regard, it's not enough. It's not enough just to like the sport, and it's not enough to even be good at the sport when you first start out. It's like there has to be some kind of passion and dedication for you to see your development long term. And yeah, it's the exact same thing in powerlifting. Well, no, not the exact same thing in powerlifting. I think you can stay competitive in powerlifting maybe a little bit longer than you can in weightlifting. Longer, yeah. Probably because speed and technique are not as big, are not that big of issues. And there's also like lower mobility requirements. And if I remember correctly, speed and reaction time are some of the first things to start declining. And those elements just aren't as important in powerlifting. It's more of just like a grinding sport, right? Force lifting, it should be called, not powerlifting.
Yeah, force lifting, and then powerlifting should be what weightlifting is.
Exactly, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, because speed is definitely one of the first things to go. Like when you start turning 30, that's just going to go downhill. But your ability to output force, as long as you're healthy and uninjured, is going to go up well into your 50s.
Is that so? Wow, yeah. Right on.
Yeah, because you'll see lots of the heavier weight classes, even in like Masters 35 and 40 age groups, are still competing into open.
Oh, that's awesome. In weightlifting or powerlifting?
Powerlifting.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely. There's I mean, in terms of the Olympics and weightlifting, I guess it's kind of like a young person's game, right? It's like maybe 35 is the oldest that you'd see, but
yeah,
I mean,
that's an anomaly too.
Yeah, even 35 might be considered very old. Yeah. So in powerlifting, it's really cool. I mean, like powerlifting started as a backyard sport. It was like the back end of weightlifting meets. Like people would just go into the back and like, let's see what you can squat. Let's see what you can pull. Let's see what you can like strict curl or whatever it was. Right. So it kind of started as an offshoot of weightlifting. And then it was formalized by the IPF and so on and so forth. But it's a sport that has, I think, lower barriers to entry.
Definitely.
Squatting is sitting down and then standing up is a lot simpler than doing a snatch. Yeah. So, and a lot more people can coach a decent looking squat than the amount of people that can coach a decent looking snatch. So I think even the one barrier to weightlifting, for example, is the education aspect, right? Is to finding a good coach, right? Yeah. That's experienced and that knows how to program properly, that knows how to program intelligently to not hurt you, for example, and knows how to knows how to coach movement properly. It's not enough for you to be just a good athlete in the sport. Coaching is something completely different.
Yeah, because at least in Alberta, like I can count the number of really good weightlifting coaches on one hand. Whereas for powerlifting, like there's a whole bunch out there. Alberta's actually huge for powerlifting right now. Because like you were saying, 8 years ago when you did your first meet, yeah, you had a bench record. But since then, it's just exploded. And Alberta's had like world medalists and world champions from all over.
It's really cool, yeah. Bryce Cranky Chink out of Calgary. He's been like it's been really cool to see him develop and like see how much weight he's moving. It's pretty crazy. Shane Martin, incredible guy, super strong. Avi from Alberta?
I think he used to be part of UAPA, didn't he? Oh wait, no, Avi's from Calgary.
Yeah, but still Alberta. Yeah. So yeah, there's quite a lot of strong people. Theresa Parsons, also world level competitor.
Yeah.
I got her into powerlifting. I was her first powerlifting coach.
Where did you find her?
We met at Rock Jungle Fitness on the West End.
Oh yeah.
I ran a strength club there for a very long time. I don't remember when I did my first one, but I would teach like powerlifting movements on Saturday morning or something, and then I had a small class of 5 or so people. And I met Theresa there. Theresa got really good at CrossFit, and then I was just there. I was like, I don't remember what our first conversation was, but I eventually started coaching, started working together. I remember the first time. Yeah, I think I remember the first time at McEwen. She came to McEwen, and we just like maxed out her sumo deadlift, and it was like 140 kilos. It was like just some people, man. Some people just they just touch the bar, and they're like, you are made for the sport because you are starting like 10 miles ahead of everybody else, right?
Yeah.
And it's about if that person has a passion for the sport, whatever sport it is, right? It doesn't have to be powerlifting, but if they have a passion for the sport, it's like, yes, they started 10 miles ahead, but again, that's not enough. Like they need to be passionate beyond that and to, again, see it long-term. And Theresa has been developing incredibly. She is super, super strong. She's one of the most focused people that I know. And she follows the program to a T. And she's doing great. Super happy for her.
Yeah, and then speaking of Theresa, she's with the strength guys now, right?
I do believe so. Yes.
Yeah, another Alberta powerlifting coach.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. Alfred, right?
Yep.
Man, what is going on with Alberta? We really are the Texas of Canada, aren't we?
The cold Texas.
The cold Texas
snows in May.
Yeah. What the hell was that, hey? Jeez.
Yeah, I know. I turned on, like, we had the one hot day there, and then I turned off my furnace. I'm like, okay, summer's here. It's hot upstairs.
It's over, yeah.
We're gonna turn off the furnace, and then it snows the next day. It's great.
Man, last weekend, total burn. Our arms completely roasted all the way down. Face was red, burned my scalp. 5 days later, it snows. Unreal. And it's like you'd think that we just get used to it, but we don't. Every year this happens, and every year it's shocking.
Yeah, we're always surprised, as if it didn't happen last year and the year before. And
yeah.
So another thing that I know I bugged you about for like a year or two was making wrist wraps out of leather. So what was it that I said that finally pushed you over the edge into actually making wrist wraps?
Oh man, I just like every wrist wrap. Okay, so for those listening, there's wrist straps, right? Which are the straps that you wrap around a barbell, and then they help you with pulling. And then there's wrist wraps, which are they can be made out of fabric, out of stretch nylon, or out of leather, and they cover the wrist joint and prohibit it from flexing. Extension.
Yeah.
I have a kin degree. Okay, I know what I'm talking about. So yeah, the leather wrist wraps. Every time I tried to make them, I hated them. They felt like crap. They felt super uncomfortable. In hindsight, I think that's probably because I have a really ugly and messed up wrist. I think we found the name for this. It's called their ulnar protuberance or something like that.
Yeah.
But mine is like very aggressively popping out.
Yeah, mine's not so big. Yeah, yours is pretty big.
Yours isn't bad, and mine is like huge. Yeah, on both arms. So wearing like stiffer leather wrist wraps around my wrist, like it just felt like crap all the time. And I was like, why would I devote time into developing a product that I know is going to feel like crap for everybody? But you just kept poking me, man. You just kept poking and prodding, and I said, fine, buddy. And I actually like sat down. I made 2 prototypes, one for you and for another guy in the States. Both of you guys liked them, and I tried making a pair for myself, and I like them a lot right away. So I knew I was onto something. I just needed to design my way out of a few common issues, basically. So again, this is just going to be on audio, but if you take a look at my Northlift Belts Instagram, the straps, the wraps are up there. And basically the belts, the way that I designed the belts is that they're movable, so you can account for this protuberance. Basically, you can drop a belt above it and a belt below it. And in that area, I also put in padding. So the padding allows a little bit of flex before the stiffness of the leather kind of wraps around the wrist. But as soon as I started using them, I was like super happy with them. And I kind of now understand the difference between like a nylon stretch style wrist wrap that offers like an insane amount of compression and stiffness, but it offers so much compression that you have to take them off after your set, right? They're very restrictive on purpose because you're benching like a huge amount of load, right? Or you're squatting low bar, and resisting extension is super important. But with these leather wrist wraps, what I've noticed is that they offer more of a stiff extension endpoint, where it's like you have mobility about this much and then it just stops right there, which is really cool because basically you can put them on at the beginning of your workout and you don't have to take them off.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of like a passive extension support. So I've yeah, if it's not obvious, I think about these things very, very deeply, and like how I design my products and stuff. It's all super important to me. And like the feedback, I always take feedback super seriously, and I'm always developing my products. And like every couple of months, something in my product line has changed, whether a shape or a new way that I put something together or whatever. Like I'm constantly trying to improve. It's not on the website because I'm just constantly working at the table. I get so much of my business from Instagram anyway. I like enough people visit my website and they contact me through my website, but I get most of my business from Instagram. But I'm still very depressed with the growth. Only 3,000 followers. I think I made my first post in like 2014 and I just broke 3,000 followers.
Yeah. Well, you're doing better than me. I'm at like 650.
Yeah, but how long have you been active?
Yeah, I've been here for a year and a bit, not quite as long as you.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? It's like I started I think like a handful of weightlifting accessory companies have like started after me, and they all have like 4 or 5 times the amount of followers that I do. I don't understand Instagram. When I make a post about like a product or something, it'll get like maybe 30 to like 60 likes or something. And then I make a post that's like showing me or my shop, and it blows up. It gets like 150 likes in like 6 hours or something. I don't get Instagram.
That shows who your audience is, though. Your audience is people that care about you more so than just right.
So why the hell do I care about my product so much? God damn it! I just post selfies of myself. No, I'm kidding. I totally get it, and I mean I am not immune to that either. It's like the story of your brand is so important, because there's so many similar products out there, right? And my products can be very similar to a lot of other belts, but the story is a huge reason why somebody buys something.
Oh, definitely.
And the story is what can really change a product's price, for example. I like one of the people that I really look up to. His name is Peter Nitz. He's a leather artisan in Switzerland, and I mean, this guy makes like $6,000 purses and like $700 card wallets. So like this is like a simple card wallet. that I make for 140, 120 bucks right now. He sells something very similar for like $700. And he was on a podcast and he was talking about like how he's developed his brand, and like he's been at it for 12 or 15 years now. And it's, people really care about the story. They care about how your product is made. They care about who made it, right? What is the brand's history? Like, who is this person? And I'm trying to, I'm trying to incorporate that aspect into my business, definitely. So, but it's something that I'm gonna have to work on, definitely. Like, I spend a lot of my time at the table. And as a lot of people know, my wait times are pretty long, and I'm sorry everybody, but like this stuff takes so long, and it's like so much of it is just done with, well, everything is just done with my two hands. So everything just takes a long time, and I'm trying to improve that speed and improve that efficiency. And that's like that's kind of my biggest focus right now, is to improve my efficiency in the shop so that people don't have to wait 8 weeks for the product, right? They can, I can produce it a lot faster. And the story, hopefully I can show more of myself and talk more about myself as the years go on. And I mean, even this opportunity is fantastic because I've never talked about my brand in depth like this with anybody. So thank you so much, man.
Yeah, man, it's fun to have you on. And then speaking about your efficiency, like how long does it typically take for you to make each one of your products? Like how long does it take to make wrist wraps or a belt?
So straps, I finally purchased dies, which are these clicker dies. They're like stamps, so they stamp out the entire strap. So a pair of straps can now take me five minutes maybe, with embossing and riveting and stuff like that. Like weightlifting straps now can be like that. But some belts, I haven't shown it yet, but recently I made that the Viking belt, which has like two
The fur on it, yeah.
No. They have like two Thor hammers on the side, and then
yeah, I saw that one on your Instagram.
it says something in the center. I forgot what it says, but anyway, it's yeah. So I mean, something like that takes a very, very long time, and I have to reflect. I have to reflect the price with how much labor I put into that. So yeah, something like that with drying times, like it can take 2 days. That's not to say that it takes me 16 hours of work, but it's a process that'll take over 2 days to incorporate all the drying time of the paint and the tooling, because all the tooling is done by hand, all the painting is done by hand. So there's a lot of processes that take me a really long time. It's still a lot of handwork, right? So yeah, there's a broad range. I can make some simple belts. Ooh, screen sharing. Yep. Victory or Valhalla. Yeah, there it is. Man, that belt was sick.
Yeah, man, that's a good looking belt right there. What is that it's on here?
That is Nelby. So one of my longtime strength class clients, she crochets, and one day she just showed up to strength class with this imp, and he's wearing a singlet and he's wearing a lever belt, and the singlet says Northlift Belts on the back, and he's holding a barbell and plates, like as you can see there.
Oh yeah, in his right hand.
Yeah, she just made this for me. I love him, and I did a post on Instagram like, hey, what should I name him? And somebody said Nelby, because it's like NLB. Oh yeah. And that just stuck. Unfortunately, I don't remember who made that suggestion. If you're listening to this, please send me a DM. I would love to credit you. I love that name. It's stuck.
Yeah, let's take a look through your Instagram here and look at some of this stuff. Like, here's those wrist grips. And I think my favorite thing about the wrist wraps was that there's some other leather workers that make these leather wrist wraps, but they come like all the way up to the middle of the hand so that they like hard restrict that extension. And then that's just so uncomfortable when you get zero extension. And then if you're someone like me who's a weightlifter that likes to use straps on hang snatches, you can't use straps and really big wrist wraps at the same time because then you can't feel the straps. You can't feel your hand anymore. But these are like just low profile enough to allow that little bit of extension that you're talking about and then still have straps on over top of them.
Totally. Yeah. So that was, different people that are making them right now. They have a tapered design, which is what you're talking about. They have a larger, basically posterior section that extends, that like prohibits the extension a little bit harder. And when I was designing these, I was not a fan of that because I had such a messed up wrist. I knew that I wanted the cuffs, because every person's wrist is going to be shaped a little bit differently. I wanted the cuffs to have the option of wearing them upside down, wearing them on the other hand, wearing them twisted into a different position, right? To accommodate for that unique shape of the wrist.
Yeah.
And if you have a tapered posterior section, you can't twist it. It has to stay in that position. So this is just something, it made more sense to me to kind of have it all a single width. So it would accommodate different wrists and be a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, because definitely whenever I wear these, I'm always like, which one is the left, which one is the right? But there's not really a right answer to that. And then if you have that big wrist protuberance like you do, you can kind of wear it like right along the edge where that inside strap ends. And then there's a little bit of extra space there for it, even on top.
Totally. You can, yeah, absolutely. You can wear it that way. And I mean, again, the whole inside there is padded. So that's the idea as well, is that the padding will allow for some flex in the wrist. And another thing that's nice about leather is it does have a certain amount of give to it, and it will kind of form to your wrist over time as well.
Yeah. Let's take a look at some of your other stuff here, because you don't just make lifting stuff, you make actual like everyday wearing leather stuff too, like camera straps and duffel bags. Absolutely. And all that stuff as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. These are that's a dog strap that I made for a Dougie named Noah. He came by and he was super cute. I was very happy to see him.
You make real people belts?
I make belts for real human beings. Yes.
Not for lifters, but for normal human beings.
No, for normal human beings. Weightlifters are not allowed to wear pants belts because they only wear yoga pants or those big whatever chunky drop crotch pants, which I love, by the way. I love drop crotch. Like, they're not sweats, they're like fitness. I think they're soccer pants. They have to be originally soccer pants.
Yeah, they have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then this is what, the Titan?
This is the Atlas.
Atlas, right.
Mm-hmm.
Then
this is the Titan.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Lots of colors of straps. I'm sure that's easier now that you have dyes. Yeah,
definitely easier now that I have dyes. Everything up until now has just been hands. It's nice to simplify some of the process and be able to get my products out there faster, especially for straps. Like, I really try to, like, the wait time on my straps is not 8 weeks. Yeah. And actually, speaking of which, I'm going to try to do something which is basically like a strapped up Edmonton. I'm going to be releasing a whole bunch of straps, and they're going to be on discount if you come and pick them up in Edmonton. Because if you're in Edmonton and you don't wear my straps, that's my fault, because I obviously just haven't made enough yet. So yeah. I'm just going to try to finally just make enough and just load up the city with my stuff, because this city has been fantastic to me. So much of my business is local. I really, really appreciate that support.
Yeah, because
look at that fanny pack.
Yeah, it's a nice fanny pack, actually. It's a good dye on it.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah, because I remember when I first heard of you, I think it was from I saw you tagged in one of Bodhi Santavi's posts. And I'm like, oh, that's a nice looking belt. And then I went and looked at your Instagram page. I'm like, oh, I should buy one of these. Just started weightlifting. I don't have a belt yet. Might as well not buy a shitty one that I'm not going to like. Might as well spend some extra money, get a good one. Cause like, you don't need to buy a second belt ever in your weightlifting career if you have a good one. So I'm like, okay. Then I look at your website. I'm like, oh, this guy's in Edmonton. Oh, he goes to the same university as me. How have I not seen this guy?
Oh, we lift at the same gym.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's really cool. I felt very similar. Like, do you know who Dean Somerset is?
Yeah. Yeah, I never knew he was from Edmonton. And then I'm like, oh, how have I not seen
Right? I was like, what the hell stuff is happening in Edmonton? There's famous people here?
Yeah,
like
people are from Edmonton other than just
Yeah, totally. I remember because I shadowed Dean quite a bit, and he taught me quite a lot earlier in my career. And I remember I think I just like read something from him on Google or something, and then like, oh man, like this guy's really cool. He's really smart. And I was like, what the hell? He's in Edmonton? Oh my God. Stuff is happening here. There's people here.
Yeah, isn't he at Evolve downtown now?
Yeah, he is now. Yep.
Yeah. I'm just like, oh, I go there a lot. How have I not seen this Instagram famous person there?
Exactly. This Instagram famous person. He's like 7 feet tall in real life. Jesus. Big guy.
Yeah.
Great guy.
All right. I think that covers mostly everything that we had planned to talk about. Do you have anything else any other topics you want to add in there?
Thanks for starting the podcast. You know, there's it's really cool to see like a high quality show that's made locally. It's really nice. I'm very happy to be on it. Yeah, keep doing what you're doing, man. How's your training and how's your coaching been over this fantastic year?
I mean, it's been as good as it can be. I think it was like my training, because now that I am in my master's through my first year, I didn't get a whole lot of training done because I was just trying to survive school. So Zoom school is very depressing, let me tell you.
Oh my God.
Not a lot of fun. Not a lot of training could happen. But I was lucky enough. I bought an Eleiko weightlifting bar, a squat stand, and like 300 kilos of plates, like 2 months before everything shut down last March. Because I just bought it off my friend that was getting rid of it. And I'm like, oh, I'm sure I'll need this one day. And then 2 months later, everything shut down. And I'm like, good. I can still lift.
Oh my God. Are your plates Eleiko as well?
My change plates are Eleiko, but everything else was just MDUSA.
Man, that is sick. Why would somebody sell an Eleiko bar? That's not something that you sell. You just buy it and that's it. You hold it on forever.
Yeah. And it's like, it's a vintage one from like the late 90s that has the smaller collar on it.
Oh, that's sick.
Collar, but yeah. And it's one of the ones that opens up and spins better the older it is. So I'm keeping it forever. But my friend that sold it to me had just lost his job and he needed some extra money after that. And he's like, here, I'll sell you all of this for much less than I paid for it. And I'm like, okay.
That's sick, man.
Take
no,
it.
that's awesome. Eleiko is kind of like Toyota. There's if you find like a 90s Eleiko bar or something like that, they're vintage. It's not that they lose their value, they just like hold on to their value for a very, very long time. And that's like Toyota pickups. I drive a 1993 Toyota pickup, like a 2-wheel drive, just some tiny little truck. And like I remember looking for a truck like this. The guy posted the ad. I called him like 5 minutes after he posted the ad, and I was like, hey, like I need to come see this thing right now. He's like, yeah, sure. I drove over there. By the time I drove over there, he already had like 5 offers on this dinky little truck, because it's like, I don't know, there's just something about old Toyotas. There's something about old Eleikos.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah. Part of me is toyed with the idea of like, we could probably put this on Kijiji for like, I don't know, $1,500, $1,600 and buy 2 bars instead. But no, I gotta hold on to it.
Oh man, hold on to it. Hold on to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And I mean,
Good
since
stuff.
then, like I've moved into a new house since quarantine. I have enough room in my basement for 3 platforms.
Yes, the dungeon gym,
Yeah.
the jailhouse gym. My
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
That's sick,
Weightlifting
man.
platform right here. Hot water heater right here.
Love it. What are you doing for your masters?
Masters of coaching. Very unique.
LTAD.
Nah. Long-term
Nah.
planning is just like, it's a good concept, but then if you try and actually plan, it's just like, okay, everything is going to, some variable is going to change in a month, and then we're going to change everything. As long as you have that overall concept.
It's brave of you to assume that it'll take a month.
Oh yeah, it might take 5 minutes and then something's going to change, and then I
Yeah,
can hope for a month before I have to change all the plans.
man, it's so funny. Like coaching. What was it? The class was advanced programming or something like that at the U that I took, and where you have to write like a whole year's program of
Advanced
like a
methodology, yeah.
advanced conditioning methodology. Man, what a hilarious concept
Dude,
that you are going to write out a year's worth of training that is going to be relevant to absolutely anyone at all. And it's
yeah.
like, why are we doing this at all? I don't know, man. That was so funny. The whole concept of, yeah, I mean, you guys talked about it in another podcast as well about like this. It's almost like long-term planning to me has just turned into nothing, almost nothing more than like a feeling. It's just like, I feel, or I would kind of like this person to 6 months from now maybe hit somewhere kind of in these numbers, maybe. Because it's like everything changes within a week. They get sick, they move, they don't have access to equipment. Like especially over this last year, like coaching my athletes has just been like every year, every week. It's like, okay, pivot here, pivot this, do this, do this, do this. And the whole idea of coaching to me has just like, I think I started coaching with a very not rigid goals, but like I had more rigid concepts of what programming was, you know.
Yeah.
Like we got to do small ob junior. Okay, so you know, every 3 times a week, like we have to keep adding this amount of reps, this amount of weight, right, every week. And it's like, no matter what, this is the way it's got to go. And my programming, following the research and stuff, like earlier in my career, I was always like, okay, should I be like logging the total volume per lift? Does this volume, you know, does this volume matter? Like, can I drop the weight but increase the volume? Is that going to create the effect that I think it's supposed to? Like, programming for me has gone from something very rigid to something very fluid and kind of reactive, right? It's like it's this blend between planning and reaction. So it's very cool that you're doing a master's in that. Like, what are you focusing in specifically?
I mean, I'm going into my thesis next semester. So what I think I'm going to focus on is levels of athlete autonomy. And kind of to use what you were saying as an example of how your programming has gone from more rigid to more fluid, like the more rigid your programming is, the easier that is to communicate to someone else, because it's like A is A, B is B. There's no guesswork. It's hard to have something get lost in translation. Whereas the more fluid it is, where you're saying, okay, well, if I drop the reps, but I increase the overall volume, is it going to have this effect? And then if you're trying to be more fluid with your programming and say you're giving an open set to your athlete or you're giving them an RPE, then you also have to educate them and take them through that gray area of what that means. But depending on how you communicate that and how well you communicate that, that can be way better than having a rigid, easier to communicate program. But that all just depends on your ability to communicate that and your athlete's ability to understand that and have confidence in their own decisions.
Absolutely, man. Oh man, everything you're saying is so interesting. Cause it's like, it's all the shit that, like I've been very into that. Cause like, yeah, this is my full-time job, but like I still coach athletes, and like coaching is still a huge passion of mine. And like developing athletes, or they don't even have to be athletes. Like I coach a lot of regular people as well. And man, like the older I get, the more I understand the importance of communication and building trust and building this resilient relationship between yourself and your athlete, and learning to understand them. It's like, you know, this person doesn't respond well to me yelling at them, like, but this person responds really well to me yelling at them, me slapping their back, right? It's like you have to learn to understand your athlete as an individual and unique human being. They're not just a computer program that you type into Excel, right? It's like, well, we're doing this amount of volume here, and we're going to add whatever 5% to that next week, and so on and so forth. But like even that, like as you're talking about in terms of like rigid versus fluidity, I know there's athletes that I have worked with that respond far better to rigid programming. They respond far better to like, what is the plan? I don't care how I feel. I am hitting the numbers that you give me.
Yeah.
Right? They don't ask questions. Even when I tell them, I'm like, do you have any questions? Do you have any comments, concerns? Like, is there something about your program you don't like? Something you do like? Do you want more of this? Do you want more of that? And they're like, nope, you're good.
They're like, no,
all right, whatever.
I don't want to have a brain, coach. Make the Excel, and then the Excel is my brain.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. But it can take time to discover that in somebody, and it can take time to even build up the trust for your athlete to open up the truth to you.
Yeah.
Right? Because like if they don't trust you in the beginning, all they have is kind of like, what is my coach expecting of me? Mm-hmm. If I get the feeling that this coach is a rigid guy, but I'm myself intrinsically, I want flexibility, but I don't feel I don't have the confidence to bring that up. So I'm just going to continue this rigid programming, right? And it might take several months, 6 months, a year for that athlete to finally open up and be like, you know, tell me what you really feel, you know?
Yeah.
It can take a long time. And yeah, my whole view of coaching has changed from myself in the driver's seat and the athlete as my car to like, my athlete is the driver, the car is also the driver, and I'm just like on the side with a walkie-talkie. I'm kind of like, let's do this, let's try this. You know, it's kind of more like athlete. Even the terminology has kind of changed from from like making an athlete to developing an athlete, or to kind of going through the development process with somebody, you know.
Yeah.
It's really changed over 10 years that I've been coaching. So
yeah, I always kind of like to think of it in the analogy of being an advisor. Like a coach should be an advisor, depending on the sport, of course, but for weightlifting and powerlifting, like it's not like you're creating a strategy to beat another team like you would in soccer. It's like, okay, I'm going to give you advice on when we should lift heavy, when we should lift high volume, and what you should try and change your technique like, right? Mm-hmm. As opposed to, okay, this is the strategy we're going to use because this team does that. You're just kind of advising them on how they should go about things. And that's where communication can kind of get tough, because like you're saying, some people respond better to that rigid structure. But then say you have someone that needs more flexibility, and you say, okay, well, we're going to take like this, let's say we're going to take 3 heavy sets on this Friday. Okay, what does that mean? How heavy is heavy? How hard do I go? Do I go so heavy that my technique turns to shit? Or do I go like just heavy enough that my technique is perfect? And how do you create that?
Yeah, it's even that you were talking about earlier about using like RPEs or reps in reserve. I used to be quite rigid, so I would just type in the number and like, this is what we're going to hit, right? But now, if I take on a new client, I almost teach them right out the gate to start taking mental notes, start taking notes in your logbook. Like, how did this set feel? How many do you think you had in the tank, right? And then I start matching that, like I start matching their perception of a set with like their actual bar speed in the video, for example, right?
Yeah.
So like this one guy right now, I'll tell him like, okay, I want you to hit a single at 3 RIR. So 3 reps in reserve. So something, this is just for the listeners. I know you know what it is, but for the listeners, it would be like, I want you to hit 1 rep at something you could have hit for 4 reps, right? And he sends me the video and he just blasts it. And he's like, yep, that felt like a 3 RIR. And I'm like, I think you had like 7 or 8 in the tank.
Yeah.
But it's really good to even start that, because that skill gets better over time. And do you know who like Mike Teixeira is with like
Name's
RTS?
familiar, yeah.
Yeah, like he really kind of popularized RPE training and kind of like a reactive training system. And that's literally what RTS stands for. Anyway, so I mean, like that, he really influenced the way that I view coaching now, because it's like, man, I'm typing numbers into an Excel sheet and I talk to you, I talk to you like whatever, almost every day or something, but there's only so much input that I'm getting as a coach that I can create accurate outputs for, right?
Yeah.
That I can accurately react to. So it's like, but you know very well how you feel like on that day, how you slept the night before, like how fast the bar feels, how fast the movement feels the day of. Like, I'm not watching you lift live over webcam or something, right? You're doing your entire program without me, and then you're sending me videos after the fact, right? So creating that, in a sense, that does create athlete autonomy, right? Giving them flexible ranges at the very minimum, right? Like, I want you to hit something between 380 and 415 today,
Yeah.
for between 2 to 3 reps, but I want you to hit 3 sets, right? So you give them this kind of blend between rigidity and some kind of range, and you can kind of start adding more flexibility over time as they learn to understand themselves and their own efforts a little bit better, right? And I think that long term, that's a pretty winning strategy. Like it's a very viable long term strategy.
Yeah, definitely. Then in the literature, that phenomenon that you're describing is called autonomy support, because like you're not just giving them the full autonomy to just be like, okay, you're gonna go lift today, figure it out.
What movements? Whatever. Use a bar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Use a bar. Do whatever.
Yeah, but you're giving them that bandwidth of decision making. So rather than giving them that whole spectrum of decision where it's like, okay, go do whatever you want, you're like, okay, here are the parameters. So between this weight and this many sets, between this many reps and this many reps, you're giving them that ability to start making decisions within a safe framework. And then after they've gained that experience making those safe decisions, because as long as they're anywhere within that framework that you give them, they should theoretically be fine, right? Then you can start feeding them a little more rope, let them make a little bit more open decisions now that they've gained that confidence and understanding.
Man, that's really cool. Like, honestly, if I was to go back to school or something like that, it would be something along those lines. Either coaching or obesity epidemiology.
Yeah,
or
epidemiology,
obesity.
so much more interesting than actual physiology. Because that's why I went into coaching, because physiology is like, oh, okay, athlete lift heavy weight fast, athlete becomes strong and fast. We all know that. You can advance it like this much, but like, we get the idea. How do I communicate this to another person and make them understand all of this?
We get it. Lift weight, make strong. I get it. Yeah, man. Like, trying to understand stuff at a population level, like that's where presents some unique challenges, like what are we doing with the obesity epidemic? Like, why are we sucking? at treating this disease? Why do we suck at this? Like,
well, if you go to an obese person and you're like, hey, you need to eat less and exercise more, they're like, okay, fundamentally, your sentence has made sense to me in my brain. I understand the words you just said. But now how do you help empower them and give them the autonomy, same as you would with a powerlifting athlete? How do you give them the autonomy to make decisions that's going to allow that to happen?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's where the complexity and the complexity comes in. It's like, I was talking to my other friend. He's studying dietetics right now. And we were talking about like, damn it.
Something.
We're talking about something. I literally went, I see this guy like once or twice a year, and we just talk nonstop for like 2 hours about research and training. And no, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, we were talking about like, drugs to treat obesity, and how like why are effective drugs stigmatized against obesity? Like, effective drugs are fantastic. Like, and we came at it as like, it's probably an issue between like people are not accepting that obesity is a chronic disease, right? It's a disease state that creates changes in your brain and in your body. And it's not as simple as just eat less and move more, right? It's difficult to communicate to people, and education alone is not enough. There's a lot more to the puzzle than education, right? And yeah, we were just talking about like semaglutide, I think it was, is this new obesity drug that like just like kills your appetite, and it shows that it's very effective. And people got mad about it. Like, they're mad that there's an effect. How dare there be an effective drug for obesity? That was the title of
losing weight easier.
Yeah, there was this. There was an op-ed piece by a doctor. Then that was the title. How dare there be an effective drug for obesity? It's Anyway, point is, if I was to go back to school, that would be one of those two fields would be very interesting to me. But congratulations, man, and like keep at it, because there's a lot to unpack there.
Definitely.
Yep. Okay, man, I'm gonna get back to work here.
Yeah, can't be increasing those wait times anymore.
No. It's all blame it on Alex.
Blame it on me sending you all my athletes to get straps and belts. And
there you go. Exactly.
They're all in line. Right. Where can everybody find you on the Instagrams and the internets and the buying your things?
Check me out, northliftbelts.com. You can Google me, Northlift, one word, belts. On Instagram, I'm at Northlift Belts. Also, my training or coaching Instagram is just at Northlift on Instagram. And I think that's everywhere where I want you to find me.
Don't go find him at his studio. Don't hunt him down.
No. By appointment only.
Yeah.
By appointment only.
All right,
okay, thank you so much for having me on, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for doing it. It's always good to hear from you, hear your story, hear what's going on. Do you know when you're doing that Strap the City thing in Edmonton? Do you have a date for that?
I would love to do that either next week or the week following. I kind of want to do I would like to time it with the opening of gyms. That would be perfect. So yeah, I think
who knows when that's going to be at this point.
Well, I don't know, man. Kenny said that they're coming out with a plan. They're coming out with a reopening plan.
After gym lockdown number 3, they got a plan.
Yeah, and they even have the timeline for the 4th lockdown set right into the plan.
Yeah. Well, they're having K-12 go back to school in a week, so
that's right. Yeah.
Hopefully, people can go to the gyms, because there's no cases coming out of gyms. There's tons of cases coming out of schools.
Go get vaccinated, people. The science is incredible. Okay, do some digging on the mRNA vaccines. Incredible science. It's the coolest shit ever.
Yeah, Google Scholar, not
naturalnews.com or Mercola.com, please.
No BuzzFeed.
No. Actually, you know what? BuzzFeed is big enough that they would probably like, there would be people on their ass to keep it super, super accurate. That's kind of one of those things. It's the fringe sites that get to say what they want, because there's no quality control there, right?
Yeah.
It's written by 2 or 3 guys stuck somewhere in the basement, right? Whereas maybe BuzzFeed, I still wouldn't do that. Maybe go to Google Scholar. Try Google Scholar. Yeah, that's right.
Or actually go to Google Scholar, and then when it asks you to pay $80 for the paper you want to read, go type that paper into Sci-Hub. There you go.
That's right. Is that is Sci-Hub the one with the raven?
Yeah, the one with the raven. Where all the articles.
Yeah. Oh man, just free research.
Free science, the way it should be.
Free science, the way it should be. But then who's going to pay for the research?
I don't know how the economy works. I just want to read the research. All right.
That's another loaded topic for another time, maybe.
That'll be a good podcast later on. We can get a few people on for that one.
Oh man, just go back and ask some old profs. Or you're still at the school. So you're still at the school. You have access to those people.
Yeah, all right. Man. I should get some U of A profs on here. We'll talk to Greg Knuckles. I know he's got opinions on that one.
Absolutely. Oh man, we didn't even talk about how belts worked. Okay, so I'm just going to plug this. Google Greg Knuckles, the Belt Bible. Okay, if you want to know how belts work, that's fantastic. It's a 15-minute read. It'll answer literally every question. Greg Knuckles, the Belt Bible. Go check it out.
Yeah. All right. Long story short, no belt. Back do this. Back stay like this.
Pretty close, actually.
Yeah. Which, I mean, with low loads, fine. With really heavy loads, maybe a little bit less fine, but not the worst in the world. But you gotta be accustomed to the stimulus. It's a long story. It's fine.
Oh my God. You did say everything just right, though. That was good. That was just in that sweet spot between the two extremes. That's right. Wow, do you study this stuff or something?
I might have a degree, and I might be getting a second one. No.
Start a collection.
All right.
Okay. Have a good day.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yep. Thanks everybody for listening, and then hopefully you guys can check out Strap the City when gyms are back open in Alberta. We'll keep you posted about that on the Instagram, on my Instagram, on the Northlift Instagram.
Thank you very much.